Welcome to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On this show, we take an in-depth look at each of these franchises and discover that both of them can coexist in today's fandom as they introduce us to fresh, new, and exciting stories, characters, galactic destinations, and so much more. Tonight, we have a crew, because tonight we are discussing we are discussing Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 13, the season finale, The Hope Is You Part 2. Can't do that without this amazing crew. So joining me, of course, is smuggler, savant, and mathematician expert, Miss Amy Nelson.
Well, hello. It is our last Discovery episode. I'm glad that we have found our way home.
Yes, we are home. Of course, but you know what? We're not home without somebody who is apparently trying to upspur the captain here, at least with his dress, as he's kind of rocking some Picard look. Wrong show, Kevin. We're not in Picard season 2 yet.
Hey. Rank has its privileges, okay? I'm wearing my Captain Picard later seasons TNG captain's coat. Love that. I gotta do the little captain's Picard maneuver tug, though. There we go. Yeah.
But Kevin's what Kevin's not telling you is he made that out of the replicator. So. Our weapons officer extraordinaire, Miss Hayley Stoddard, is in transit. We'll hopefully be beaming in here shortly, but we're going to get things started now because we got a big episode to talk about. It is the season finale of Star Trek Discovery. So without further ado, Mr. Reitzel, Captain Reitzel, if we will, would you care to open up the hailing frequencies and tell people where they can find not only the Union Federation, but all the great shows under the starship that is the Fandom Podcast Network?
Yes, of course you can find all of us here at... Let's just start with the Union Federation Facebook page that we have there. If you like our podcast and you like what's going on, head on over to Facebook and search Union Federation Podcast. We talk about, of course, Star Trek and the Orville over there. But we have a Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. Please check it out and subscribe. We have some exclusive content just for YouTube channel, but we also put all of our audio podcasts there as well, including this podcast you're listening to now, the Union Federation Podcast. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts can be found on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can also stream and download the Fandom Podcast Network on the Podbean app. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Union Fed Podcast. And also, please check out our main Fandom Podcast Network Facebook page as well. You can contact us directly. You can hail us at email, theunionfederation@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom.
And Amy, where can we find you and what are you up to?
Well, you can find me talking all Star Trek things on All Good Things. And we just did our top 1%. Because as you know, there's 800 episodes and movies. And so we did our 1%, throwing in the math in there.
800 total Star Trek episodes and movies. And
yes.
You did your top 1. Was that hard to nail down?
Well, it wasn't, because I chose a category that made sense to me. So my category, well, spoilers, now you don't need to listen to the podcast, but you will anyways. I chose the top 1% of episodes that make me think the most. Which ones I've thought about the most.
But you have to tune in to find that out. So
yes.
That's very cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's...
wait.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I highly doubt there's any episodes of Lower Decks on that list.
Right. Yeah. The newer ones were really hard to be, but I mean, I've been thinking about TNG for 30 years.
I have to ask, where did yesterday's Enterprise make an appearance?
No, it did not.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
curious. All right.
I know.
Well, where else can we find you, and what about on social media?
Yeah, so I also do Galaxy Class. That's another podcast, but that's specific to Next Generation. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and then, of course, in our Facebook group.
Awesome. You can find Hayley also on Twitter at Trekkie01D. And there are two ways you can support the Fandom Podcast Network and the Union Federation podcast. Please visit our TeePublic store. Please help support the Fandom Podcast Network and Union Federation podcast while wearing your favorite show logos with pride. Just search Fandom Podcast Network and Union Federation on TeePublic. Kyle is rocking his Union Federation podcast t-shirt as we speak. Also to leave us reviews on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that very much. Kyle, back to you.
Well, without further ado, we got a lot to talk about here with this season finale of Star Trek Discovery, because if you follow on social media, I think it's safe to say the reactions have been a mixed bag. So without further ado, let's fly into the officers' lounge. So, big episode. We got a lot to talk about. Before we get started into kind of analyzing the episode and talking about the acts, were you guys excited going into the season finale? I want to ask each of you that, because, you know, we weren't sure about the 2 episodes ago, but we seemed to all agree on enjoyment of the episode before the finale. So, was there genuine excitement going into the season finale, Amy?
Absolutely, because you know this is where we're going to get answers. And so it's just a matter of, are they going to answer all of my questions, part of my questions, one question? So yes, I was definitely excited and I liked it, but I'm going to tell you the other episodes previous to that, it just didn't do it for me again. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's something we're going to talk about. Mr. Reitzel, I'm very curious about this. You've been kind of on this journey of, okay, and Discovery's at least brought my intrigue back into it, kind of after having some sour taste after season 2. So were you excited going into the season finale?
I'm not going to say I was excited. I was intrigued and very curious to see where it was going to go. Excitement, I'm not quite. I was just kind of more, I'm wondering what they're going to do here and how they're going to explain this and that. But I also knew going into it, like, I don't know how they're going to fix the burn thing that I wasn't happy about. So let's see where this goes.
I think for me, there was a little bit of excitement because I liked some of the ideas they were looking at, but I was a little bit of intrepidation too, because I'm with you on the burn situation. I'm like, I just wasn't feeling that. So yeah, I was coming in with like, I'm looking forward to see how they do this, but yeah, I'm not sure if they can get themselves out of a couple of holes that they dug themselves out of. And I think that's going to be open to interpretation. So without further ado, I'm going to open things up and talk the teaser section of the episode. Inside the holodeck aboard the derelict KSF Keith, the Dr. Hugh Kolber, transformed by the program to look like a Bajoran, watches a holographic Gormonger pup float through the air as the narrator explains that it holds the record of longest time spent on the Federation's endangered species list. The Gormander dissolves as it flies, a sign that the program is breaking down. Nearby, Su'Kal notices radiation burns appearing on the face of Captain Saru, who has been altered by the program to appear human. Kolber reports that the program is degrading and more radiation is getting through. Su'Kal's prior outburst caused a hull breach. Kolber suggests Saru connect with Su'Kal by explaining that he is Kelpian as well, despite his present appearance. A Dirital arrives, having beamed down from Cleveland Booker's ship. They have been altered by the program to appear Zayan. They greet Saru and Kolber excitedly and explain that they brought additional medicine by hiding it in their mouth. Greytal then appears, shocking Kolber and Saru, who can see him through his Trill appearance, although his Trill appearance has been altered to make him look Vulcan. The program somehow is able to manifest Grey's appearance to others. The environment around them glitches, and Saru directs the other 3 to continue searching for a way out. At Federation headquarters, the Emerald Chain flagship Viridian fires on the complex's shields. Inside, various Starfleet vessels trade fire with the USS Discovery, which is under control of Osira. Admiral Charles Vance directs the USS Voyager J to lead the fight against the Viridian, while the rest of the ships continue firing on Discovery. Well, meanwhile, aboard Discovery, Osira orders her regulators to fire on the complex's primary shield emitter, with Lieutenant Audrey Willa tells Vance the emitter will last less than 5 minutes against a barrage, and Vance orders the fleet to hit Discovery harder. As Zara brings a captured Burnham to the bridge, Osira tells Booker that she will use a truth serum devised by Aurelio to obtain from him the location of Theta Zeta, the dilithium planet in the Viridian Nebula. On Deck 7, Sylvia Tilly and the bridge crew and Dot 23 drones controlled by the Spear data trade fire with the regulators, who retreat to the upper decks per Osira's instructions. The computer reports life support is being shut off and atmosphere drained. Lieutenant Timo reports to Vance about the situation, but they are unable to detect whether there are any life signs in that part of Discovery. Stamets arrives and begs Vance to stop firing on the ship, as it is his only way to return to the dilithium planet and save the away team in time. However, Vance rejects his request, as he cannot fall under Osira's control, and orders him loaded in an emergency transport, ferrying civilians away from the battle. The complex's shields start to fail. A surprise Timo reports that a Navarre fleet is about to arrive to provide backup. The Navarre ships are blocking Discovery's path out, so Osira directs the Viridian to deploy its cache of pesticides. Burnham asks her not to, saying she will convince Vance to stand down. Vance is skeptical, but after Burnham's urging, he relents. Burnham is escorted off the bridge as Discovery and the Viridian go to maximum warp, pursued by Starfleet and Navarre vessels. A lot happening in this opening sequence, guys. Kevin, hit me up first with your thoughts, because there's a lot of, the ball is bouncing all over the place here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. The stuff with Su'Kal and Adira arriving and Gray Tal appearing, and Gray can be seen. I was more interested about, though, was what was happening, of course, with the Emerald Chain and the Viridian and Discovery. And it was interesting how how much was done in this opening act here. I guess when it comes down to it, what really is important here is them taking the ship back. And you're starting to see a little bit of those steps kind of start taking place here. But I think the important thing here, and probably one of the most captivating scenes for me, is when Burnham is trying to tell the Admiral, you got to trust me here. And this is what you have, Stamets, so we can't use the spore drive, but trust me, you need to let me do this. And I love the fact how he kind of swipes away the screen and you're not quite sure yet. And then he relents and lets the Discovery escape and take off. But I thought that was just a great scene, the way he swipes at the hollow screen like that. So that was good drama there, I have to admit.
Okay, first of all, we talked about Admiral Vance. So, Amy, you have 15 swoon seconds.
No, because I'm going to continue talking about Admiral Vance.
15 swoon seconds? I like that.
Again, just brilliant. And I loved when he was talking to Stamets. And it's like, Burnham was right. You need to be far away from Discovery, because we're not going to have you and Discovery and that spore drive get away. So to his face said, Burnham is right. And he's like, you don't understand, as we talked about last time, my whole life is on that planet. Yeah, I get it, but Burnham is right. So I love that Vance is willing to call the hard shots. And as you mentioned, Kevin, that beautiful scene where it's like, is he going to trust Burnham? Is he going to fire on Discovery? Is he willing to, have that cost of losing Discovery just so Osira doesn't have Discovery? So yeah, that was good. So just right from the get-go, I'm sure if anyone's ever listened to me talk about Discovery way back on season 1, going into season 2, the one thing that drove me absolutely crazy was the spinning. And I'm blaming the director, Olatunde, whatever his name is.
Spinning?
there was so much spinning. The camera is spinning all through this episode. I was like, I thought we got over it in season 2 and season 3 was good. There was only like 1 or 2 and I just let it slide. But in this episode, freak. It was way too much spinning. You needed anti-nausea pills to get over it. I'm not happy. Olatunde, not my favorite director. So I'm going to complain about that just so people don't forget that I really do hate spinning shots of camera angles. I also have a question for you. So the Discovery is inside the shields, and obviously Osira has control. So Vance orders all the available ships that are in the force field to start firing on Discovery, and Discovery is firing on headquarters, right? When we see the outside looking in, there are shots being fired in every direction. Okay. Headquarters is one stationary spot. If Discovery's aiming at anything, they should be aiming at a still building, whatever it is in space. If the headquarters is shooting at Discovery hasn't moved anywhere. So how hard is it to shoot a motionless object? That's my point.
It got pretty busy in there.
Yeah.
I have to agree, but I was kind of picking my battles, so to speak. And that was the least of them.
Okay, well, I'll bring it up for the both of us.
But that's an excellent point.
No, I jump in on this. There was one thought I had when watching that scene, especially when they show the bigger. I'm like, okay, Starfleet crossfire is a thing.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. Friendly fire is a thing here. So,
yeah.
I want to just switch up just a little bit because obviously everything that was happening on Discovery was very cool. The whole Vance thing, everything between Osira and that. But we do need to. I do want to put a little focus back onto the Keith and what was going on there. First of all, major props to the effects people at Discovery because this hollow world was amazing looking. We talked about it a couple episodes ago. Again, here opening up with that shot of the Gormanger flying. Absolutely beautiful. You know those guys were just in heaven getting to play with all that world and create that. But on the flip side, this story is just it's too convenient and it's just like it wasn't focused on enough. I mean, it's too convenient that all of a sudden Adira Tal arrives and everybody can see a holographic version of Gray Tal as well. I mean, it was a nice moment between Gray and Culber. I thought that was very nice where he just like just hugs her immediately. They and it made for some convenient things later on, which we'll talk about in the episode. But it felt like these guys there was no sense of urgency within the hollow world, even though they know they're dying, they know this radiation, but it still didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency, especially from Saru, who's the captain, who you would think, okay, he's so focused on Sakal, but yet he doesn't seem at all worried about Discovery at this point. So it felt like they weren't kind of feel for the characters while they were in this world. Kevin, you're kind of been like just burying your head while I talk about this.
I've become so disenchanted with this side story with the burn and this holographic world to where no matter how good the effects were, it didn't help me like it anymore. Yes, that one moment of them being together was nice, those characters. But yeah, I didn't feel the urgency, and honestly, I was waiting for the scene to be over. I just wanted, because I knew they had to figure out how to do something there just to, for Discovery to show up and help them. And I was just waiting for that stuff to be over with, to be honest with you.
I can see
hold on, go. Give me 1 second, Miss Nelson, because we are about to be teleported in by our amazing weapons officer, Miss Hayley Stoddard.
Hello.
Welcome. We were just talking about the whole opening sequence with the stuff going on in the holographic world, and Vance relenting to Burnham and letting Discovery escape and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
So, Amy, you had a thought as Hayley was beaming into the ship?
Yes, welcome aboard. I just wanted to say that for me, seeing Gray as Vulcan has been my favorite part. I think that's the look of Gray that I enjoy the most. I'm okay with the story and the holo program, and I do agree with you, Kyle. It's absolutely beautiful. I love seeing the degradation of it all. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say right now at this point.
Can I just make one comment about that scene when Saru is talking with Sakal? There's kind of a rule when it comes to costumes in space, in science fiction. And Saru, whatever the outfit that he's wearing as he's looking human, maybe it's because he is human, but even human characters in space don't have zippers and zipper like things. If you look at his neck, you can see the little zipper tongue thing. It's really weird.
Oh, I see the pull. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in Star Wars, there's no buttons or there's stuff, you don't see zippers and stuff like that. So I just thought that was
I'm totally taking my zip up hoodies with me into the future in space.
Yeah.
Because it's cold in space and girl's going to need a jacket.
Okay, well, now that we know that Hayley will be zippered in space later in the future, Hayley, kind of catch us up here. What did you think of the opening act of the show?
I thought it was really interesting. It was nice to Adira. Do we even know what Adira is? I've never seen that species before.
Yes, we have. And I had to ask on social media.
Okay.
Zahian.
Oh.
Poe Zahian.
I didn't even make that connection. So thank you, Amy, for asking, and thank you for people who let us know. I liked that. I loved that sequence. I thought it was visually really beautiful. A little dark. I'm kind of a little over the super, super dark, but I get that it's trying to relay this ominous kind of feeling and sensation. So that's about it. Gray was really cool. That was cool. He was Vulcan. Makes sense. That was kind of interesting. So, and intrigued that suddenly they could all see him and touch him and feel him. And I guess that makes sense considering it is a holodeck and it's a holo program and it makes things that really shouldn't be there actually solid. So that's logical.
What about what was going on with Discovery? Anything stand out there on that end of things in this opening act? You have missed Amy's 15 minutes of Vance swoon, so I'm just 15 seconds of Vance swoon.
That's true. I don't know. This episode for me overall was okay.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. We're going to get more into that. But let's move on. Mr. Reitzel, would you be kind enough to read Act 1 for us?
Of course. Act 1, Saru, increasingly suffering from the radiation, offers to prepare a meal with Sukal, specifically Sanon Lem, a traditional Kaminar dish. So, Sukal says he has always wanted to make it, but with the holograms did not provide good instructions. Saru offers to teach him, revealing he learned the recipe from his father. Sukal questions how a human holo could eat Sanon Lem, and Saru explains that he is not as he appears, and he is in fact Kelpian, though Sukal seems doubtful. In the Discovery sickbay, Aurelio explains the serum will take time to work on Booker, but Zareth urges that he has built up an immunity and demands to use the neural lock device instead. Osira directs Aurelio to give Zareth the neutral lock, but the scientists protest, arguing that Booker's empathic abilities mean the device will cause him excruciating pain. When Aurelio resists her, Osira chokes him until he loses consciousness. Zara places the neural lock on Booker as Osira tells Burnham that the sheer agony will eventually kill him. As they eat the Kelpian food around the fire, Saru explains to Sukal that the hologram has changed his appearance. Sukal notes that a nearby door previously only led to Kaminar, but that recently has led to several other worlds. Saru explains that the burn has prevented long-distance travel for many years, and that his mother, Issa, created the holo program to keep Sukal safe, though she never intended him to live there for his whole life. Sukal stands and walks through the door to the hollow Kaminar. Osira and Zareth torture Booker as Burnham pleads with them to stop. Osira explains that Tilly and the rest facing oxygen deprivation will be unconscious in 30 minutes and dead within an hour. Osira tells Burnham she cannot save them, but can save Booker at least. She resumes torturing Booker, and Burnham gives in, asking Osira to stop. Burnham approaches Booker's bedside, but then suddenly taps a command console, enshrouding them inside a quarantine force field. With Osira and Zareth cut off, Burnham and Booker escape through a side door in engineering. Tilly and the other officers are having difficulty breathing and are sharing among them one oxygen mask. Wosakan explains that she has superior lung capacity, having grown up free diving for abalone in the Abunki caves. Bryce reports a hard reboot could restore the computer systems, but they would have to access the data core. Burnham and Booker, grounded by the transporter jammers, sneak through the ship, avoiding regulators. Burnham has a plan. Using one of the regulators' badges, Burnham broadcasts a vague audio message across the ship meant for Tilly to decrypt. Tilly explains to the others that on her birthday, Burnham helped her through a hard time. Tilly realizes Burnham's message was directing her to use an incendiary device to destabilize the superconductors holding the now detached nacelle in place, knocking the ship out of warp and allowing the pursuing fleet to catch up. Reese notes that the DOT drones would not be able to help, meaning the officers must undertake a potential suicide mission themselves. Burnham and Booker, meanwhile, make their way to the data core.
Okay, so there's a lot, again, with this episode, so there's just constantly a lot going on. And it's interesting where you've got all the action on the Discovery, but everything is just kind of on the slow pace back on the holodeck, even though there's maybe starting to feel a little sense of urgency. I don't know. But you know what, Kevin, I got to give you proper props here for how your pronunciation there, because I'm gonna take you to the next Korean, Chinese restaurant.
Oh, that was a guess. Sorry, because I couldn't remember what they said on the show, so I kind of guessed it hard. And Hayley's shaking her head like, "Yeah, you got it wrong."
No, I'm just like I would have been like, we'll go with it.
So, Hayley, since you joined us and didn't really get to hop in on the teaser act real quick, what did you think of what was going on here in Act 1?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see this developing relationship with Sukal and Saru. And I kind of like it. I like that he's reaching out to him and trying to essentially maybe be a father figure to Sukal, and create that relationship, because, you know, you really do see that he's really the only one who's going to get Sukal to get them out of this holo program. So that was really quite fascinating to watch. On Discovery, you know, gosh, Zara, I know it's later, but man, he deserves what he gets. So, but kind of not surprising that what happens in that scene in sickbay, essentially, and them trying to, you know, get Booker to say where they need to go to Osira, and what Burnham does and gets them to escape and all that. It very much felt like that. I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen, but something like that was going to happen, and they were going to escape. And I went with it. It was fine. I really, in this episode, I enjoyed way more of what was going on with Sukal and Saru than I did so much perhaps with what's going on in Discovery, which is kind of surprising. I felt a little bit the opposite the last episode. So that was kind of a flip, which was really interesting. I thought that storyline was more beautiful and telling and really kind of touching as it goes on. then aside from more bridge crew discussions and getting to hear the bridge crew talk more, I really wasn't crazy about what was going on in Discovery. So in this episode, and I can bring it up later, but interestingly, there was an article that Wired posted today that talks about success and failure. And in order to succeed, you really have to accept failure. And I think the bridge crew really kind of took that on in this episode, saying, hey, we might all fail. This might not work, but we're going to give it our best and we're going to try anyway. Even if we don't succeed, we're going to put this plan in motion and we're going to do our best. And I thought that was really interesting that this article came out today. I was like, oh, I'm going to bring that up tonight. So, yeah.
No, that is interesting. Real quick, I just got to throw out props to actor Doug Jones too, because he's an actor who's so used to wearing these heavy makeups or doing everything with the digital face motion and everything like that. And when you're acting on screen, when you get so used to that, you tend to, because you're in those makeups, have to oversell your facial emotions and everything like that, so they reflect in the makeup. And to be able to just how he reflected his emotions in this episode through his face without overdoing it when he's so used to having those, just a great thing he did in this episode. And I just wanted to make sure of that. Kevin, what were your thoughts about what was going on here? I know you're kind of the opposite of Hayley here, loving what's going on Discovery, not so much on Hollow World.
I do want to touch on what you just said about Doug Jones as Saru. His demeanor, both in and out of makeup, proves that he's such a good actor, because when he's able to, his diplomacy is very disarming. I guess that's a good way to say it. And when he's talking to Call, you could see the concern in his face and the way that he's making him feel comfortable. But he's also able to do that behind a pound of makeup, in the way that he does that. So he's phenomenal when it comes to that, which has made him a good, leader as well, which I like. The whole thing with Osira and Booker, and this is where Osira's really, obviously becoming the tyrant that she is and showing her true colors. And Zareth, of course, is just enjoying what he is doing, because obviously he's has the power that he's enjoying, and he's the torturer, so to speak, I guess. But I did enjoy the scenes with the crew realizing what they're going to have to do and possibly die while doing it. And I just want to mention really quick, Owosekon mentioning about free diving. I actually know a couple of free divers, and this is very, very dangerous hobby. And I've seen some, I know there was a movie about it once too, and stuff like that. But these are people that dive very, very deep without any type of respirator at all. And this is something that you have to basically train to do for a very long time, and exercising your lungs. And it can be very, very dangerous, especially with what can happen to your brain and stuff like that. So it's interesting that she brings that up, because that's a real thing. And there's a lot of people that really thrive in doing that. But like I said, you can't just jump into it. It takes a while to develop a lung for it. Seriously.
Yeah, no, that I've actually seen a couple interesting documentaries on freediving. I completely get where you're coming from on that, and I found that very cool that they actually brought that up as a reference of why she has the lung capacity she has. So, Amy, your thoughts on what's going on here?
Yeah, this act I liked actually quite a bit, and it got me thinking quite a bit, because when Saru and Sukal are talking about, and they're building a fire, and Sukal's like, well, how do you do that? And Saru's like, well, my father taught me, my mother taught me, these are things that I have learned. And when he said that, Saru just said it as a matter of factly, like, this is what I was taught. And there have been actually quite a few times where, like, some of my friends or whatever, it's like, especially in high school, it's like, how do you know how to write a check? Well, my mom taught me. Like, how did you know to start a retirement plan when you were 25? Well, my mother taught me. Who doesn't know these things? And so it's interesting to see his being raised by his parents, comparing that to Su'Kal, who had very loving, tender, caring parents. Obviously, what the mother did to even make Su'Kal last and survive. Like, it's just, I love seeing that he was taught so much, but yet not, and just that one small example of cooking a meal or lighting a fire, it really got me thinking. I thought it was beautiful. And I almost teared up, my teacher heart in me, when Su'Kal was not wanting to face what was in the door or behind there. And he knew, and he says, well, if outside exists, why didn't they come for me? Oh my gosh, you guys, that breaks my heart, because I have had actual students who haven't been picked up from school, who, I won't go more, but having a child expect something from adults that don't come through is so frustrating to me. And so I really felt that in that scene, and definitely felt for Su'Kal and understood why he got so angry when his mother died, and why he's so unwilling to open that door, because it had been so long. If they were supposed to be coming, why didn't they? Was I not worth it? You can just imagine what was going through his mind. I also enjoyed we get to see where Aurelio becomes disillusioned with Osira, because now he's forcing Booker with this truth serum, and she literally chokes him, and so we get this removal of the rose-colored glasses, and it's just very small, it's nuanced, but it's very poignant. And I think that's where, we get that followed up later with Aurelio staying on board Discovery. So those were my thoughts for this act.
Yep. Lots of things still to come, though. Miss Stoddard, would you care to read Act 2 for us?
Of course. Su'Kal returns and reports that the holo program's Kaminar is empty. Saru explains that the outside world is composed of many worlds and non-holographic individuals, including himself. The world can be challenging, Saru admits, but is also beautiful and diverse and filled with wonder. Issa's program was meant to help him understand it. Suddenly, the monster arrives. Saru explains that it is actually trying to help him confront his greatest fear, whatever is behind the locked door, or they will all die. Su'Kal flees, searching for the elder Kelpian holo. Culber, Adira, and Gray come across a section where the holo program is breaking down into the real world, and Gray offers to explore it since he cannot be harmed by the radiation. As he does, Culber explains to Adira that he believes Su'Kal is a polyploid, which is caused when normal chromosomal separation is disrupted in utero. It causes the individual's genes to be affected by their environment, which for Su'Kal included huge concentrations of dilithium and radiation. Culber explains that Su'Kal's genes mutated to interact with dilithium in unique ways. Adira notes that dilithium has a subspace component and speculates Su'Kal has a genetic connection to subspace as well. Culber realizes Su'Kal caused the burn and nearly caused another earlier when he was upset by the monster. Adira suggests that his scream traveled at the same frequency as dilithium's subspace components. Culber notes that whatever frightened him 125 years ago must have been much worse than his recent experience. However, if they remove Su'Kal from the dilithium planet, Culbert says another burn can be prevented. Gray returns and reports that the Kith is falling apart and its shields will not hold much longer. Su'Kal discovers the Elder Hollow is gone, which Saru explains is a sign of the program's severe degradation. The others arrive, and Saru prompts Su'Kal to take them into the locked room. Aboard Discovery, Tilly and the rest struggle to breathe to reach the nacelle access point. But Owosekun has collapsed. All but Owosekun has collapsed. Tilly orders her to take the remaining oxygen and deliver the bomb by herself. Taking the bomb, she tells her fellow officers she loves them all and ascends towards the nacelle access. Elsewhere, Booker trades fire with regulators as Burnham tries to gain entry to a turbolift. Regulators fight Burnham and Booker through the turbolift network. Burnham shoots one regulator through the ceiling panel, and in the ensuing firefight falls into the cab. Burnham jumps out and falls to another turbolift. Booker remains behind, fighting the regulators and Zara as his own cab moves into the underbelly with its open doors. Burnham forces open the door of a cab she's riding and takes the single regulator inside by surprise and rerouting to the data core. She arrives at the data core and engages in combat with Osira and several regulators. Owosekun arrives at the nacelle access point, having run out of supplemental oxygen. She places the bomb, but, weak, collapses before leaving. One of the DOT-23 drones controlled by the sphere data arrives, urging her to stand. It reaches out for her just as the bomb explodes. The nacelle, now destabilized, Discovery is forced out of warp.
Okay, guys, this is when I think we start going off the rails here on this episode. So many things. Of course, let's start with the fact that the burn is basically a grown child having a hissy fit. And this is something that's stuck with me since this concept of how the turbolifts work in Federation ships have shown. That has never made any sense to me at all. And like, how does this fit inside the ships? So, you know what, Amy, I'm going to let you start because you're making faces and making hand gestures, and I just don't know where to go. So, Amy Nelson, the floor is yours.
All right. Yes, the turbolift stupidity. Literally what I wrote in my notes. Why have they not learned since Star Trek 09? I get that it was a movie and you always want it bigger and better, but my gosh, the engine room and the turbo lifts in this new era of Star Trek are absolutely freaking ridiculous. You can't have something larger on the inside than it is on the outside. I'm just...
It's called the TARDIS.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you're calling...
I wrote that in my notes.
Never seen an episode of Doctor Who, and maybe if you would have said Mary Poppins' bag, I would have understood that reference better. But yeah, we're not in Mary Poppins' bag, so they need to learn, and they need to learn now. Stop with the stupidity of the turbolifts and engine rooms and falling down to your death with no bottom. Okay, whatever. Now, the thing with Su'Kal and how his body polyploid, I think was said. So not only without a tricorder or any type of scanning, they are determining that his body has connected and changed and reacted to the dilithium and is also working and genetically connected to subspace. And because they were able to measure that subspace going through when he screamed, all without any type of sensor, tricorder, anything. So I'm just going to leave that there for you to understand the tone of my voice. So here's the one thing that I did like in this act was Burnham coming out of the programmable matter, whatever, the data core, shooting Osira. Whatever. But she says, unlike you, I never quit. Because Osira is like, I already tried with Vance, so now it's going to be my way, and that is definitely an attitude that many people take. I already tried this, so why am I going to try again? And Burnham's like, hey, I never quit. And it sort of goes back to what Tilly was telling the bridge crew. It's like, well, we can die here with no oxygen, or we can die trying to get that to blow up the nacelle or whatever. So I like the themes of never quitting, never giving up, working together. I like that aspect of it, that Burnham's sending a secret message. There's no way that I could send a secret message to any of you in that amount of time, but we'll just leave that there. But Burnham's talking and Tilly's rallying the troops. So it has a really good feeling of family. And that's what I enjoyed about this act.
Kevin, you've got the facepalm going.
Not as bad as Hayley's.
That's true.
Okay. Bigger on the inside than it is the outside works with Doctor Who, Mary Poppins' bag, and Hermione's handbag. Okay. This was freaking ridiculous. I'm sorry, but that's not how I want to see turbolifts working. I don't understand what's going on with that, and it totally took me out of it. I mean, I think it would have been a lot more interesting if you just, if there was like some type of turbolift shuffle, and they seem to be going left, right, diagonally. I just don't get it. And it's funny when you mention 2009, Amy, where they're the turbolift thing, but they have all these fancy turbolifts, but then they have like the plastic doors that you would walk through in a meat container here in normal our time, it's just like, anyway, that was completely ridiculous. It's one of those things where like, I think you could have had a lot of really good action with fighting and stuff like that, but keep it into a closed combat type thing, like we've seen with John Wick recently and a bunch of other cool action movies and stuff. But I think that was just completely ridiculous. I just don't get it. The burn. This has been the biggest disappointment of this entire season, is the reason for the burn. I would have preferred the Dominion coming back and starting the burn. Something that is a lot more intriguing to the survival of or what's left of the Federation. Let an old adversary come in, or something new, or something to just make it interesting, and something that you can build on later. I'm glad that we got an answer to the burn, but that was one of the lamest Star Trek threads I have ever seen, being a Star Trek fan, the way that they have described the burn, because they built it up so well and got us so excited about how or when this was going to be done, if we were going to see it by the end of the season. And to me, it is completely disappointing. If you want to bring Saru and a Kelpian together and to rebuild, the Kelpian world or something, you didn't have to do it this way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Before I get to you, Hayley, I just want to say, does Willy Wonka know that Starfleet has taken his copyright patents for elevators? Hayley, I'm handing the controls over to you. I'm expecting a few pew pew pews coming up.
Gosh, this is where the science kind of went out the window and the fiction really took over for me in this episode. And I was kind of not here for it. I'm going to be honest. Visually, it was wonderful. Sure. The turbolift stuff, really kind of ridiculous. Although I do have to admit, when I've thought about the turbolifts, I kind of have thought about it in a Willy Wonka-esque kind of way, because they've always kind of alluded that it's not just up and down that they go, because, the ships aren't tubular. They're not in any kind of shape that you would just go up and down. You do kind of have to go left, right, maybe diagonal. I don't know. So in a sense, I can understand them moving weird, sort of. But at the same time, it's also really kind of confusing, because if you look at TNG and you're like, they get in the turbo lift and then they go up some floor decks and then they get off the turbolift. It's not like the doors to the turbolift move, but somehow they move. Besides the point. Back to this, Su'Kal is a polyploid. And I was curious, so here's your science. Polyploidy can occur and occurs due to abnormal cell division, either during mitosis or in meiosis. It can occur in humans, but it's differentiated human tissue, which is in the liver, heart muscle, bone marrow, and placenta. Generally, this is in plants. So I don't know where that comes from, how he can be a polyploid, because I found this other article that was a study, and apparently if this occurs in a human, they do not live to birth. So, sure. Thanks. I'm sure they saw the term and they thought, this sounds great. Maybe looked into a little and thought, sure, why not? But yeah. Okay. And I agree with Kevin. The reason for the burn, I really did kind of feel like a letdown. And I know this is something that I have been saying. I had said before that I did not want to see the Borg come back. It would have been better if the Borg had caused the burn. And maybe we didn't see him. It was just like, hey, they caused the burn because maybe they're really not completely gone. And if I remember right, I think there was some regulators that said, or a regulator that said, resistance is futile. And I was like, wait, is he Borg? Dude's a Borg? That could make sense. I mean, they've got helmets so you don't see their face. Hello. That would have been a better storyline than this. But on the one hand, I do have to say how the burn was caused, which we get to in the next act, I believe, ties into kind of the overall story that they're kind of showing with emotions and strength and connection and whatnot, because we realize why he did what he did. And I can't imagine if some kid and his mom are the last two alive on his ship and his mom dies, an emotional response at the age of, I don't know, let's say 10, because that's what he looked like, is going to happen. And the rest of it's just massive amounts of fiction.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment, Hayley. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to Act 3. I will read Act 3 here. Discovery re-enters normal space. The turbulence knocks Burnham and Booker and their assailants to the ground. The Viridian surrounds Discovery as their turbolift flies through the ship's underbelly. Zara taunts Booker, asking whether he or that fat cat of yours would leave a bigger stain from a fall. You don't go there. You just don't go there. Booker, however, manages to eject Zara from the cab instead, and he falls to his death. She's a queen! Booker shouts after him. You don't go there. You just don't do it. Meanwhile, in the data core, Osira manages to force Burnham into a wall made of programmable matter. She pushes Burnham backwards into the wall, which subsumes her. Osira looks unsatisfied, but a few moments later, Burnham shoots her dead from inside the wall. Burnham performs a hard reset of the computer systems, restoring the Starfleet programs and life support on all decks. Burnham beams the regulators off Discovery and diverts auxiliary power to shields. On a ship-wide channel, she orders any crew who can hear her to report to the bridge. Her message awakens Wasakun, who is surprised to find herself safely back with her comrades. She realizes that the badly damaged Dot 23 drone next to her saved her life. The rest awaken and celebrate before departing for the bridge. There they discover Booker, Aurelio, and Burnham, who informs them they are back to using the same operating systems from before Starfleet's futuristic upgrades, which Detmer does not mind at all, by the way. The Viridian begins firing anti-proton cannons at Discovery. Burnham fills Tilly as acting captain in on their situation and says she has an idea, but Tilly tells her they need her leadership now, surprising Burnham. Burnham explains her plan: to eject the ship's warp core to blow up the Viridian while using the spore drive to jump back to the nebula and save the away team. Aurelia explains to the confused officers that while Stamets needed tardigrade DNA to operate the drive, Booker's Quajon empathic abilities allow him to uniquely connect to the other species and operate the spore drive. The crew ready, Burnham has Bryce warn the Allied fleet to back off the Viridian and sends Book to the spore cube. I am just going to say this. Writing of convenience here. And very poor writing of convenience here. As much as I love Book, really, Amy Nelson?
Well, it was very interesting to see this, and I will call it a twist because I did not hear any one person say that Booker would be able to operate the spore drive. So, a nice little twist there. And so, to your point of they build up the burn to be such this amazing thing, and then we get this letdown of, oh, it's a Kelpian kid with a temper tantrum. But the build up was so beautiful. Now, compare that to Booker maybe 2 or 3 times mentioning that, you know, when he talks to the animals or plants, you know, the something on his forehead lit up way back in episode 1 and 3. They sort of mentioned it when they went back to Quajon and Book, you know, we met his brother and they had their little fight and they had a special connection that sort of set them apart than the others of his kind. So the setup for this, that he can operate the spore drive, like, come on, you should have set that up better because that's awesome. I love it because now we don't have to rely completely on Stamets. And that was sort of a directive that Saru said, you know, we can't just rely on you. We need, you know, let's start working some things. That was way back episode 2 that was mentioned. And we're not getting that answer until finally this episode. So I think it's definitely needed. But my goodness, the build up to it was exactly opposite of the burn. So I also felt like, why is resetting the computer and having it work on the same OS before the upgrade, like, why is that important? Because right now, the only reason of mentioning it was so that Detmer can feel more comfortable. Whatever. That is a wash. So I'm wondering why twice, right? Burnham reset the computer and then mentioning, oh, we're on our OS before the upgrade. I'm wondering if that's going to make a play into next season or if that's going to be with the AI and the .23s. I'm feeling, well, I'm hoping, I guess, that there would be something there. And yeah, you don't mess with the queen, man. Grudge. She's the queen and you don't mess. And I loved that.
Hayley, you were awful animated while Amy was talking.
Well, I wanted to point out, I think the reason that they did the reset is because in the last episode, Osira was having them remove and install their programming. So they had to reset, and they couldn't necessarily reset to programming that had been deleted. So they had to reset to programming that Osira probably was like, man, let's just leave. Like, it's not worried. Let's not going to worry about that. We just need to remove the programming that this current timeline Federation installed. And we're deleting all of that. So they had to reset and get rid of all the programming Osira had put into the ship. So I think that's why they did the reset.
Thank you very much. This is why we podcast.
You're welcome. One thing I forgot to mention, I don't know about you guys, but in Act 2, did anybody else feel like we were going to lose a bridge crew?
Yeah, I had a little bit of feeling about that, but
I was worried. I was like, are we going to lose a bridge crew? Don't let us lose. No, we can't lose somebody else. Yeah. Zara, I loved him getting his just desserts, essentially, even though it's in the Willy Wonka TARDIS Mary Poppins bag of turbo lifts. But, and then this whole fight, I think that's probably one of my favorite things of this episode, and especially this act, was the fight with Osira and Burnham. Like, it felt really justified, like she got what she deserved. And that felt very gratifying to have that. I think it definitely had to be Burnham that fought her. And so that was really wonderful. I was not crazy about her getting pushed into programmable matter. And it like really, if you're getting pushed into something, close your mouth, yo. Like, if science fiction has taught us anything, don't open your mouth. Whatever it is going to go in your mouth, and then it's in your body. And then what do? I mean, granted, it could go up your nose and in your ears, but still, keep your mouth shut. Like, really. And then I'm guessing the programmable matter gave her the gun, because she certainly didn't have it with her when she went in. That was a little ridiculous.
How did I miss that?
I have to go back and rewatch that. I thought she did.
Interesting.
I didn't think she did, because I thought it got kicked out of her hand.
I think she picked it up right before.
Because they were fighting. Both of them had their hands on it. And then she went in. So that's
I don't
where
know. It didn't look like it, because, I mean, you see her and it's just from about, little lower than neck up that you see her getting pushed into it. So I don't know. Maybe she did. I thought the data core was an interesting concept, because I don't think, we ever really heard that term before in Star Trek, that ships have a data core. That was new and weird, and also part of, okay, let's just throw in some other stuff in Star Trek that we've never heard of before. But which happens, but still, it's like, all right, sure. I would think that if anybody stormed the ship, that's where they'd immediately go, is the data core and engineering. That makes sense if you want to take over the ship. But whatever, they always go to the bridge, sure. Yeah. I can't.
Hey, Kevin, would you understand if I said that when Burnham got pushed into the programmable matter, it gave me flashbacks to Superman 3?
I don't remember Superman 3 that well, so you'd have to explain. I don't know.
There is a scene in Superman 3 where the villain is absorbed into the supercomputer he has built.
Ah, gotcha.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
I had some severe I'm like, okay, Star Trek, you made me flashback to Superman 3.
I had flashbacks to every movie finale where a bad guy gets thrown into something and then they come screaming back out again, but this time it was Burnham. So did we get, when you guys were talking about, and yeah, I'm with you with the whole Booker, uniquely now being able to operate the spore drive. Did the writers still kind of tease us a little bit with that, with his empathic abilities with the creature early on, to kind of tease something there? Because I was trying to think that, were they trying to be vague about that? So,
it wasn't
very vague.
They didn't tease it enough.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. It was nice seeing the bad guys get their, get their due and stuff, and I think I enjoyed Zareth's death more than Osira a little bit, just because you don't insult a kitty.
Was it just me, or did Osira's death seem very anticlimactic?
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
So, want a little more cat scratching, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. With that, Amy Nelson, would you take us out of the final season of Discovery, or this season finale of Discovery with Act 4?
Yes. The monster leads Saru, and the rest towards the locked room, though Sukal says he is afraid to turn off the holo. Culber tells him it's okay to be afraid. They enter, but Gray becomes upset after realizing that he will disappear when the holo is deactivated. Adira will still be able to see him, but he realizes he needs a physical connection to the world. Culber promises to find a way to let him be seen by everyone. Sukal turns off the holo for the first time in 125 years. As the simulation deconstructs, Adira and Culber watch sadly as Gray disappears. Do I need to stop, Hayley? Okay. We will get her comments for sure. So they are left looking at the degraded ship and inhospitable planet. Adira and Culber have been returned to their human appearances. Sukal asks the computer to show him what he saw that upset him so greatly. The computer displays a holo recording of Issa near death, and young Sukal. The young Sukal asks her what's happened to their family, lying nearby under sheets, and she explains that they did not survive. With her last breath, she warns him not to touch the console until Federation rescuers arrive. She then falls over dead. The sight upsets Sukal so much that he cries out in agony, inadvertently causing the burn. The older Sukal is left despondent. Behind him, Saru tells Sukal that he is no longer alone. Sukal turns and for the first time sees Saru's true Kelpian appearance, gasping in surprise. Culber calls for Discovery but gets no response. Discovery ejects its warp core and engages the spore drive to jump away. The explosion blows apart with the massive Viridian. A hollow recording made by Issa thanks the rescuers for finding Sukal and asks them to return him to family on Kaminar. Sukal asks how he can avoid causing another burn. Culber explains it won't happen once he leaves the dilithium planet. Again, making that without a tricorder or anything to read. And I continue. Saru explains the burn was not his fault, but that he will help him understand. The ship is in imminent structural failure. The four embrace, but are saved when Discovery suddenly arrives. Moments later, the Kieth completely falls apart. Discovery returns to Federation headquarters as Sukal looks on in amazement. Burnham arrives in sickbay to witness Culber and Adira greeting Stamets. Though she smiles at him happily, Stamets turns from her icily. In engineering, Oeshakan and Reno repair the damaged Dot 23 drone. Without Osira, the Emerald chain quickly fractures. Discovery's success has also prompted renewed interest from non-Federation worlds, including Trill, which quickly rejoined, and Navarre, which is considering membership. Saru returns to Kaminar with Sukal to build a new life, according to Burnham. Outside Vance's office, Burnham happily runs into Adita Sahil, who has been made a lieutenant. In his office, Vance asks Burnham to captain Discovery, surprising her. Burnham asks for him to wait to make such a decision until Saru, who supports her captaincy, returns from Kaminar. But Vance says Discovery has a vital mission to spread fuel from the dilithium planet to wanting worlds that cannot wait. Burnham, now donning a captain's rank and a new Starfleet uniform, steps onto Discovery's bridge, where the crew greets her. Most look happy, including Adira, who now wears a Starfleet science uniform. But Stamets maintains a more neutral facade. As Burnham takes the captain's chair, Tilly reports that the mining vessel Coloma awaits for them at the dilithium planet, after which they will deliver dilithium to 2 Federation worlds, 5 non-Federation worlds, and a starbase that Tilly notes wants to thank them with their signature gelato. "Let's fly," Burnham says. Discovery exits the distortion field and warps away.
And with that, we close out this current season of Discovery. Guys, I just got to say this. Amy and I talked about this a little, even off mic. Discovery, through 3 seasons, has a problem. And that problem is they conveniently wrap up their storylines way too cleanly, too easily, and they pack way too much in the season finale to where they don't get proper resolutions to these seasons. Everybody I'm watching here, just so people know, is kind of shaking their head in agreement. Hayley, you were the most animated while Amy spoke, so I'm just going to let you fly, as they say.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Yeah, seriously. Like I said, Act 3 really took the science out of the science fiction for me in this episode. And I'm not saying that I disliked the episode. I enjoyed it, but it definitely was just okay. I felt that the last bit of this episode, I wanted more of that. I wanted half of the episode to focus on that and focus on, these planets coming back to the Federation and the Emerald Chain dismantling and them going around and delivering dilithium, and how are they getting it off this planet if there's this massive storm around it and all this radiation? Like, what in the world did they do to make that safe? I wanted more of that in this episode than anything else. And I feel really disappointed by that. So yeah, I was super animated as Amy was talking, and Culber, and I get Gray not wanting to not be seen. And I think that's beautiful because so many people in this country feel that they are not seen. They're not seen for who they are, or they're not seen at all. And that is an incredibly powerful message that he still wants to be seen. Does Discovery not have a holodeck? I mean, I know we've never had a holodeck episode, but do they not have a holodeck? Because I'm pretty sure they have something. They have to have something. I know they're pre-TOS, and TOS had a rec room. They didn't have a holodeck. We didn't really have the holodeck till we had TNG. But you'd think if they're this many years in the future, they had to have a holodeck put in. And considering we're post-Voyager, we already know there's a holo emitter so that they can create Adira in the holodeck or Gray, and Gray can wander around the ship and talk with the rest of the crew. So do we have to come up with a way when there's already something there?
Well said.
You're giving me a finger points, Kyle.
The only thing playing devil's advocate here is because of the nature of Gray being a memory out of the Trill. Is this something to where it was the uniqueness of the radiation with this holo program that had been written specially and everything on the planet that allowed for that to happen?
My brain hurts. Oh.
That's a possibility. That's a good possibility. Yeah. And I loved, a little bit of this, Sukhal and watching these memories, and his mom, the message that she sent, thank you for rescuing and my son and things like that. And this going forward, and Saru taking him back to Kaminar and showing him what a Kelpian life is really like. I think that was powerful. I also wanted to see a little bit more of that. And then we get to Discovery, the eject the warp core. I mean, how many times did we hear that on TNG? Someone has the number somewhere. I'm sure there's a number. There's a tally. I don't know it, but I'm sure it's a lot. That visually was kind of cool. I mean, I get it. How else are you going to get off this ship? Sure. All right. I'm fine with that. And then, I don't know. Gosh. Are we not surprised? I'm not surprised that they set it up for Burnham to be the captain, because really she was probably going to be the captain the whole time, but then they went with this other way of going about it, and they just shoe-ended it in, and I'm not surprised. So, okay. Sure. All right. Also, can we know if Tilly is not an ensign anymore? Please tell me she got promoted with this whole thing, because if not, that's just ridiculous.
Kevin, you're about to have
She's been an ensign longer than Harry Kim, and that's ridiculous.
I think Hayley has made her point. Kevin, you're about to have a brain aneurysm over there?
That's a good way to put it. Let's just say Tilly, so is she at least, who's the first officer now?
We don't know.
I think we're back to not having one again.
Who's second in command?
We don't know.
No.
Okay.
We don't have one.
I got all kinds of stuff. I don't know where to start. Okay, I want to start with Saru.
Okay.
So he wants to not be captain of Discovery so he can escort this Kelpian man baby back to Kaminar to look at the city and the stars. The writer's decision to write off Saru's captaincy just so you could get Burnham into the chair, I'm not happy with. Because Doug Jones's performance as captain and a leader prove that he deserves a chair. Okay, I understand that, and they mentioned this in the ready room, that they knew that at the end of season 3, Burnham was going to become the captain and sit in that chair. I get that. That's fine. I'm not happy with the way that they did it and how they conveniently casted off Saru in this manner to try to be a father figure, older brother figure to this lost Kelpian. I'm not buying that, and I'm not happy with that, to be honest with you. Stamets, obviously mentioned in the write down there, and also seeing his reaction, he's still not happy with Burnham for a reason. Obviously, the main reason could be of the scene that we saw where she basically ejected him out of there, and there was a threat of him never seeing Culber again and Dira. But also, is he a little threatened that he doesn't have the power play, that now he can do the spore? He's not the only one who can do the spore drive. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why he was being a little prudish and kind of, the way that he was reacting. When if he would take a moment and look back, it was a good thing to do. It was important that he be saved. I am not convinced that the chain would all of a sudden collapse without having Osira. I would have to think there would be other lieutenants, other people. I mean, if you're going to have an organization like that, I would think that there would be other factions and stuff like that that wouldn't so far fall by the wayside. What do you think, Hayley? Or you're saying something?
Yeah, so I think with that, it's simply because in the last episode, Osira admitted that the chain was running out of dilithium. And if there's suddenly a dilithium planet and the Federation is controlling it, it would be easy for them to have completely run out of dilithium and not get any. And the Federation would say, nope, sorry, you don't get any. And I can so from that, we can posit that they collapsed, because if they have no dilithium to run their ships, they can't go to all these worlds and planets that they were controlling and the bases that they were controlling and things like that. They have no power if they can't go nowhere. Okay. They're just stuck in space.
Regarding Burnham's captaincy, and I'm going to bring this up just a tiny bit later, but so we've got Lorca, we've got Pike, we've got Saru, Tilly, Osira temporarily was captain, and then we got Burnham. I just want to throw the question out there: is her captaincy earned? I know this is Burnham's story, and this is one of the things, and fans have had a little bit of problem with the storytelling of Discovery, is this Discovery ship is kind of reminds me of the Spinal Tap drummer. Something always happens to him and he dies or whatever, and they always have to replace the drummer. That they're trying to find a captain for this, and I guess from get-go we're under the impression now that Burnham was to become a captain. This is just her journey and the way to get there, and in the meantime the Discovery has had several people sit in the chair. But my question, though, is, I just want to throw it out there: are you happy with the way that it ended, and that was it earned? And like I said, I have an issue with Saru, just kind of his storyline being casted away here. I still think that he should be captain personally, but I just want to throw it out there.
I'm going to weigh in on this real quick here now, because I do think with what Burnham went through this season, the captaincy was earned, because we saw Michael Burnham be basically brought back down to earth, her ego put into check, having to deal with everything with Giorgio, and at least this was more foreshadowed than Book being able to control the spore drive in those episodes with Giorgio, when Giorgio leaves at the end of the episode, what she tells Burnham about she deserves the chair just as much as anybody. She's earned that right. I think with the Saru aspect of this, what I find most interesting about this is the character turn with Saru, because for so long in Discovery, we were told Saru was the first Kelpian to join Starfleet. It was his life's goal to be in Starfleet and explore the universe and become a captain of a starship. And then I think when he realized what they did, even in season 2, when he kind of rediscovered, when they went back to Kaminar and things like that, he started realizing how much he missed his connection to his people as well. And so I think with all of that happening, can be a little bit of, and you see it with Saru throughout this season as well. He starts off as the captain, but when he sees another Kelpian and the reaction that it brings to him and stuff like that, I think that's something they were building towards too. And it makes sense in a way. It's going to be interesting. Doug Jones has already confirmed Saru is in season 4. Even in the Ready Room, he threw out a few ideas himself for what Saru could be when they bring him back. And it's going to be a very interesting dynamic how they bring Saru back, because I agree with Kevin in the aspect of he didn't lose the captaincy. He chose to walk away from it. I also think Burnham did earn it. And I think getting the endorsement from Vance, who Vance made Burnham see things a different way, and Burnham made Vance see things in a different way too. So I think it's earned. I think, again, because we felt so much Discovery as the Michael Burnham show, that it just feels like, oh yeah, this is just more Burnham. It's the natural progression. But the show has been the story of Burnham getting to this captaincy. That was what it was all about in the first episode of season 1, was how she wanted the captaincy and how her journey has come through. So I do think she's earned it. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but that's just my perspective on it. Amy, you have thoughts here?
I do. And I'm going to put a pin in that because I want to talk more about Su'Kal and Saru and the Holo program first, and then I'll get to your captaincy because that's really good discussion. So Act 4 is a double-edged sword. I hate it and I love it. So I completely agree with all that you are saying about Act 4 and how quickly it ended things. But I want to point out the things that I love because I feel like they are so to the core important to us that we can just take and use tomorrow. So right at the beginning, the whole Su'Kal, Saru, Culber, where telling Su'Kal to face your fears, and how great to be taught a folklore or a children's story of here's this monster, but you can face it. You're going to face this monster and go through that door, and you can still take a step forward, even when you are scared. Like, how important and a life lesson is that? And then also to be telling Gray, you will be seen. And Hayley, you touched on it. We all want to be seen. And just how deep and important these messages are. And when Su'Kal actually ends the program, it's just beautiful because it's like, now the facade, everything is now going to be real. It was his real life, but now we're going to another level of reality. And it's just beautiful going from this child to this teenager to now basically an adult, because Su'Kal wants to help and repair the damage, whether it's his fault or not. Like, a child throwing a temper tantrum wouldn't do that. So we get the progression, again, all in this one act. Mind you, it could have been done better. But we get Su'Kal's progression of being a temper tantrum to learning about the outside, to facing your fears, to going through that door, and then saying, gosh, I did something wrong, or let me help. Like, that is a beautiful progression. Unfortunately, it's all done within this one last act. I also love the voiceover. Again, well, I don't love the voiceover, but I love the message it's sending of this disconnect versus connection. And again, sort of with Gray, like, you want to be seen. We have this internal desire to be connected to each other. And how it takes time and effort and understanding, and that we want to bring the other worlds together because we want to be connected. Going back way to Sidit, what's his name? Sidit, who is a lieutenant at the end.
Sahil,
thank you.
Yeah.
He was disconnected. We learned that there were just pockets and everyone was on their own. And so now we get to build it and bring it together. I absolutely loved that. And Admiral Vance, as wonderful as he is, totally spoke my language and was telling a story about his daughter who, in math class, mind you, I was like, Admiral Vance is talking math. You say it. So he's talking about his daughter, when learning math, drew pictures instead of numbers. And she, the daughter, was able to come to a solution without going through the normal ways. And I, as a teacher, definitely am trying constantly to get my kids to think outside of the box. I do it my way, but guess what? There's other ways to do it. I can show you how to do it my way. I can show you probably how to do it 3-4 other different ways. Great. But can you find your way to do it? And that's the beauty of math, because math really is individual. And you can, anyways, I will stop there because I'm getting on my soapbox about math. But what I love is that Admiral Vance, looking at his daughter's situation, comparing what he saw with Burnham, is learning and saying, gosh, I can see there's multiple ways to solve problems. I'm seeing it again in Burnham, and he is wise enough to recognize his shortcomings and say, yeah, Burnham, you thinking outside of the box is the way that we need to go. And so in that instance, I do believe that Burnham has earned the captain chair, coming back to your question, Kevin. I don't think that Tilly earned it. I do think Saru earned it, and he did very well, but he is too structured. He is too in the box. And at this time, thanks to Admiral Vance's wisdom, saying, yep, we need to think outside of the box. So that's what I feel.
Hayley, what about you? Did you think that Burnham has earned the captaincy?
Sure. I mean, essentially, I've been thinking since season 1 that at some point this was coming, that she was going to be the captain. It was just a matter of how it was going to fit into the storyline. I get that in the beginning of the season, she's lost and doesn't know herself and all this stuff and comes back around to it. But I don't know. Still, part of me just feels like I get that perhaps they're looking at her as like another semi-rogue, kind of like Kirk, doing things her way, but it's still Federation and it still gets the job done.
I wanted to just make a point that I wanted to bring that up because when we get into the ready room, there's a reason why I brought it up.
Fair enough. So, guys, I'm not letting you out of here, though, without Starfleet uniform approval. Yay or nay on the new uniforms. Amy's very animated.
Can I go first? Okay, a question for you. And didn't I bring this up last week? Like, why did Discovery get a refit and the uniforms didn't? The entire ship got a refit and we're still wearing Discovery uniforms. Whatever. So now we finally get them, which we should have had them from the beginning, but whatever. Why? And no, I don't like them. Why does Adira have a uniform and not Booker? Booker has agreed to stay. Booker now can fly the Spore Drive. Booker hasn't gone through Starfleet Academy. Adira hasn't gone through Starfleet Academy. Why does Adira show up in a uniform and Booker not?
I wondered that myself.
So it's not just
because the costume department know how cool he look and the way that he already does.
Exactly.
That's why.
You don't Booker is too cool for Starfleet gear.
Yes, he's too good looking because that gray is terrible. It's very militaristic. It's very penal colony looking. I don't like it at all. I'm sorry, Gersha. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're not a
you
fan.
should have them all dressed like Booker.
I'm not. I I mean, I get it because, again, like Amy was pointing out, they got a ship upgrade, but the uniforms were still the same. And to a degree, they're okay-ish, but they kind of remind me of like motion picture.
Oh,
and like some other
a lot of people
the
made
time
that
kind of like, yeah. And I'm not a fan of the TMP uniforms. I don't know. Maybe if there was something more to them than just what they are. And why does everything have to have like a A-line weird hemline? I'm not a fan. Like, I don't buy shirts like that have like the longer hemline in the back. What is this? It's
a
ridiculous.
lot of man skirts. Just saying.
And so I think the only thing that's kind of nice, I do love that they were able to keep the division colors in the stripe.
I did like that part.
Like, I like that.
Like that part.
I like that. I'm just not a fan of this weird gray color, which is just, I don't know. There's just something about it that just rubs me wrong.
Businessman Star Trek.
Yeah, maybe.
The Star Trek business look for you. Kevin, I'm going to guess by your attire that you probably weren't a fan of these new uniforms.
Yeah, I prefer something a little bit more darker, something that pops more on the screen, I think, basically. And, we've had some great uniforms, and to me, they didn't jump out as Star Trek-y as I wanted, I guess, Yeah.
And they're muted.
Yeah.
It's kind of more of a muted palette. And why are they wearing wellies? You can't run in wellies. You can't kick butt in wellies.
That you're talking about?
Just saying.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say with the gray is at least it makes the color pop. That color stripe really pop out on its own because you got this drab gray and then all of a sudden this bright color. But okay, so
I'm missing my medical white.
That's why Cobra didn't need a tricorder because it's all within the medical white outfit. Maybe. Just a couple quick episode trivias here. Burnham is told she's facing a no-win situation. She replies that she doesn't believe in a no-win situation. Obviously, a tribute to Captain Kirk. The console Sakal touches has Morse code etched on the side. The code includes the word Roddenberry. So, a couple of interesting, fun things there. One other thing, this is the first episode to confirm that the Trill were once members of the Federation, while Burnham mentions they have rejoined at the end of the episode. We've run a little long, but we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little Ready Room and pick up a few Subspace Signals.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to the Fandom Podcast Network and all of the other awesome shows we have to offer. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture news podcast. Bloody Kings, our Highlander podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite pop culture topics. End Zone, the NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s and 90s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a new Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter under Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And we're back. Amy Nelson had a math emergency, so she has teleported out. But we've got a few Ready Room observations here, as well as some Subspace Signals to pick up. But let's start with the Ready Room, because I thought this was a very interesting episode of the Ready Room. For as much as we get a little irritated with the Michael Burnham-ness of the show, how can you not love Sonequa Martin Green and the respect she has for Star Trek, for the importance of her character? I loved everything within this interview that Will was talking to her. But one of the things I really loved too is she never sat in the chair until she was actually made captain. She followed Star Trek cast protocol, which is you don't sit in the chair unless you're specifically become the captain or you are basically given the order to sit in the chair.
Kevin? Yeah, that was very, very cool. And the director, Tunde for short, a lot of Tunde. He did a little director's privilege, and of course, did it like in his off time, which is kind of fun. But I want to bring up the topic again. Why I asked the question of whether or not her captaincy was earned, and how we felt. Some of us might feel it was kind of rushed, or this was the beginning. This was the culmination of the journey that she was going to make from episode 1, season 1 to the end of season 3 here. And this is how she got there. When I started thinking about, whether or not it was earned or not, and the whole thing with Saru, when I saw this interview with her, and the interview that Will does is with Sonequa Martin Green, executive producer and showrunner Michelle Paradise, and then the director Olada Tunde, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, discussing the season 3 finale. And the question was brought up about her finally becoming the captain. But the other thing that was very touching about this is with Will discussing with Sonequa about how important this is for so many reasons. Not only do we get another female captain, but also a woman of color. And seeing Sonequa discuss how important this is, especially when Will touches on the point that there's kids watching this. And she's mentioning young African-American kids, brown kids, kids of color seeing this. And she's like, I'm not going to get all, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to let this get to me. And then it starts to get to her. She starts to tear up a little bit and how important this is to her and the reaction, everything like this. And then I kind of started thinking about when I was questioning this whole thing, like, you know what? It doesn't matter whether she earned it or not. She earned it. As an actress, portraying what she did, setting the examples that she's doing, becoming the hero to many young people watching this. It didn't matter how she got there. The fact that she did, and that is what's important here. And I started to tear up when she started to tear up. I'm like, I got caught in the emotion here. And I just thought, just seeing her get caught up in this and realizing that she finally got to sit in that, and what a momentous moment this was for her and the Star Trek franchise.
Yeah, it caught me when she started talking about her own children.
Yes.
Her new baby girl and her son. Mm-hmm. And then I liked how she said, you know what, it's not just for kids of color, it's for all children.
Yeah.
It's to show that you can do anything. And, Sonequa has been an outstanding addition to the Trek family since Discovery started. Whatever your feelings are on the character of Michael Burnham, Sonequa herself has carried herself with a grace, a respect, and a passion for this role and this character that I think is up on par with any other Star Trek actor in their disposition. And I think there's a lot. I go back to say this. I think the Discovery cast is probably the most relatable cast to the fans. There's just something very special about this cast that is very relatable to the fans. I think I said this before, with the Next Gen cast, they're almost revered. But the Discovery cast is the cast everybody just wants to go hang out with. It's like they feel like you're the cast. This is the cast you can just go hang out with. And I think that's something special that the Discovery cast has going compared to any other Star Trek cast. And it's just my personal opinion. I don't know what you guys feel on that. And this isn't knocking any other cast. This is just how I interpret the Discovery cast and what I've heard stories about them and how they seem to carry themselves.
Hayley?
I think definitely I'd probably hang out with them, but I'd also probably hang out with the
Well, no,
and I didn't watch. I totally spaced on watching the Ready Room, but I can see your point, Kevin, about how important this is for the time frame. To have another female captain and everything like that. I think for me, partly why it's difficult is because I feel like her character story. Yes, it was leading to being the captain, but I feel that there was still some things about her personality and her decisions that needed growth before she got there. And because I look at, I love the new Kelvin movies. They're fantastic, but how Kirk gets the captaincy and he's brash and he's just a little too green and not quite ready. His decisions, while in the end work out, they're not always the best in the moment. And to a degree, I still kind of feel that Burnham is that way. But I think it's powerful and it's wonderful for us to have another female captain and a female person of color being that captain. I think that in itself is wonderful. I just think for the character itself, I think there was some growth and changes that still needed to take place for her to earn that respect back from the crew. Even though she did everything wonderful and fantastic and saved the day in this episode yet again, I think there's still some respect that has to be earned, which you see with Stamets and that look he gives her when, he's hugging Culber and Adira and he doesn't respect her. And, the rest of the bridge crew very well might still harbor some of that same sentiment, just as Saru did. He didn't have respect for her. He couldn't trust her. And so I feel that there's still some of that in her character personality that is a problem if you're going to be captain.
I think that's a good point. But I also think that's why if Discovery was back in its original time frame, this would never have happened. She would have never been made captain. I think it's a product of being in this future that there's a quantity of the unknown. And I think that's something that they are going to explore more in the next season is Michael Burnham being ready to be the captain. I think that's something that they will probably, I wouldn't be surprised for them because it's going to be a different perspective from her. I do agree with you, but I also think on the flip side with Stamets, it's kind of a flip back to just how selfish Stamets can be at the time and only seeing his needs there. And I mean, and of course it's his family, it's his loved ones. It's understandable, but he's not seeing the needs of the whole in this situation, which again, under the circumstances is understandable. I do think there's the respect there from like the bridge crew that was very obvious. I think just how when Tilly turns over and says, "No, we need your leadership now," and everybody backs her on that move. So, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how they play out Captain Michael Burnham because I think they are going to play her flawed in season 4.
I want to mention one other thing when Will was interviewing Sonequa and Michelle Paradise, who's the showrunner and executive producer and the director of Tunde. They were all being interviewed at the same time. And when Michelle Paradise was talking, of course, she was mentioning how at the beginning of this season, they were going to we knew that Burnham was going to become captain. It was just how she was going to do it. But if you watch the interview, look behind her. She has this divider behind her that's probably hiding other stuff. But, there's some stickers or decals behind her. One of them says Star Trek Discovery. One of them says, "What is the burn?" And then above her, there's a picture of Grudge.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny.
So yeah, there was some interesting stuff in the Ready Room, and props to Will Wheaton for just another phenomenal season of doing the Ready Room. He has brought an energy, and like I said early on in this our run of cover of Discovery, it's been one of the highlights of this season of Discovery, and it's been one of the highlights since Picard season 2. Will Wheaton's back in Star Trek and getting the respect he deserved all along. So, you know what? Great job with the Ready. Yeah,
I adore
great job
him.
with the Ready Room. Kevin, we love him for his audiobook work too, with the Ernest Cline books, but just great to see him in this role and feeling like he belongs.
Definitely.
Because I know that was something he struggled with for a long time. But we've got a couple other things, including a little Subspace Signals. Now, not a lot out there, but however, the Critics' Choice Super Awards happened recently. I had never really heard of these before, but apparently it's a lot of pop culture, science fiction kind of things. But what was very cool about this, for Best TV Performance, Best Actor in a TV Performance, Patrick Stewart took home the Critics' Choice Award for his work on Picard. Patrick Stewart should just get a Lifetime Achievement Award in every award section anyway. Here's your Lifetime Achievement Award, Grammy, Patrick Stewart. Come on. But how great is it that Patrick Stewart, even now, still just is looked at? It's more than just, oh, you're not winning this award because you're Patrick Stewart. You're winning this award because you're still doing amazing quality work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
what's interesting is the other people he was competing against. He was competing against Robbie Amell for the show Upload, which we really enjoyed on Amazon. Travis Fimmel, Raised by Wolves. Sam Heughan from Outlander. Kevin Novak and What We Do in the Shadows, and Pedro Pascal of The Mandalorian, and Nick Offerman from Devs.
Yeah, the description. Here, I've got the description. The Critics' Choice Super Awards is a new event to celebrate the most popular fan-obsessed genres across both television and movies, including superhero, science fiction, fantasy, horror, action, and animation. Star Trek obviously came into the night with a lot of nominations. So I think that's very cool to have an awards like that. I think it's to show that, but yeah, just...
Well, how much as fans have we sat here and said, why is science fiction not a category at these award shows? And why is science fiction getting snubbed when so much stuff is science fiction? And so many people love this genre in television and film that it just constantly is getting snubbed. So I think that in itself is fantastic, that it's being included in something, and it's specifically being included. Yeah.
No, I am very excited that this is happening, and I'm excited that it's getting recognized. And I hope that it's something we see more in the mainstream award section as well. So I'm really looking forward to this direction, and congrats to Patrick Stewart. We're wrapping up, obviously, the season finale of Discovery in this third season of Discovery. I think we're going to see season 4 sooner than we think. I know it's already in production right now. We could see it before year's end. It's a distinct possibility, but it's hard to say. There's a lot of Star Trek stuff still to come. We have season 2 of Lower Decks coming up. We've got Star Trek Prodigy. Let's not forget the Nickelodeon series that's coming. That actually does sound like it has an interesting premise. We have in production, just going into production, Strange New Worlds. Picard season 2 is in production. Hayley's excited for Captain Shiny Pants and his return. But Kevin,
did you guys see that, like, the stuff he does? It's so cool. Not gonna lie.
Kevin, we also are in still high anticipation when eventually we get this third season of the Orville. But in the meantime, I'm going to step away from the captain's chair because you're going to engage the quantum drive, because we've got some Orville things planned to fill the gap here, I think.
Yeah, this article that I found came out, it was on digitalspy.com, came out December 17th. And I think that was right around where we were going to get another delay of the show. But it's happening. Season 3 is happening. When it comes out, that's the big question. And the article kind of touches on a little stuff that we are definitely going to see, like who's going to be in it. And the question came up, what about Alara? And they didn't say specifically if Lieutenant Alara Katan was going to come back, but they really like her and the character. It all depends on Halston Stage and, of course, her availability. But I think if they have a chance to bring her in, they're definitely going to do it. So I always think that's kind of cool. And of course, the regular cast that we know will be coming back, but also we're going to be getting newcomer Ann Winters, more famously known as in 13 Reasons Why. She'll be joining as a character called Charlie Burke, at least according to Deadline. The questions was how many episodes there are going to be. Season 1 was made up of 12 episodes before adding an extra 2 for the second chapter. Season 3 will have one for, so I think season 3 is going to be about 13 episodes. But episodes will run about an extra 10 minutes or more. So we'll get longer episodes, which is nice. And The question is, when will it be aired? Right now, that is up in the air. Maybe at the end of 2020, but we're looking probably 2022 right now. But they went on to say, like, what are some of the things that they're going to touch on? And one of the things they're going to touch on is the ramifications from the two-parter episode with with Isaac, yes.
Isaac.
And that whole situation. So that's one of the things they're definitely going to touch on there. So, the whole thing with Hulu is an interesting question because right now, I guess the UK or parts of Europe doesn't get Hulu. So there's going to be a challenge with that and how that's going to be done. But Seth seems committed to doing this and finishing it, and they're hopeful that they'll get a renewal for season 4. Because of the pandemic, there's been a lot of stuff that's been canceled and shelved aside, and it's, when you are a streaming thing, it's really easy to do it, and we're getting less seasons of streaming shows because of that. But they feel very confident that Hulu and what they have with the Orville is something that will definitely get, obviously, the season 3 that is going to happen, and they feel good about a season 4, but they're not ready to say for sure. So,
well, it's been fun talking this season of Discovery. We've got a lot to cover in the meantime. Like I said, Kevin will take over the captain's chair when we talk some Orville things, and because Kevin loves to play with the quantum drive.
Oh, there's a lot of things with the Orville I like playing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not going to get into that right now. And you know what? It's always a pleasure. It's great. It's been great to have Amy back, and she'll be continuing to be with us as we fill in some gaps. So the Union Federation might take a little bit of a break here to kind of recharge the dilithium crystals. They're not burned out per se, but
I promise I won't scream to destroy them.
Yeah. It's been a great ride for this season of Discovery. Definitely some amazing episodes, some questionable episodes, but you know what? It's fun either way. But you know what? It's time to move on. We're going to engage that quantum drive. We'll still be talking some Trek. Don't you worry, you Trek fans. But for now, alien frequencies are now closed.